this is the best version of Joe Fox that I've seen. It's the happiest version. It's the most well-balanced version. So the question is, so why do I still see a therapist every week at 11 a.m.? Same reason I take my blood pressure every morning after I wake a while, just to make sure it's in line. Same reason why I'm going to do steps today. Same reasons why I pay attention to what's on my screens. Same reasons why I swipe if I see something that's controversial or doesn't make me feel good. So wellness is everything.
Afternoon, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, Adam, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
I can think of nobody better to talk about relationships than you. I know you've built many deep ones and very meaningful ones, including with my family. And it's just an honor to spend this time with you, and hopefully in some ways that are beneficial for Sworn's users.
It's kind of why we're here, you know? It's why we're here, relationships, right?
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
So Joe Fox, 68 years. Just realized in the last year, finally, I realized that this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real thing. So I'm trying to get the most out of this ride. 37 years NYPD chief. 20 of those years was a chief. Thanks in a large part to your dad, by the way, who believed in me. I'm retired 8 years now. No, 7 years, 7 years. And I'm probably busier now than I was, and probably even happier than I was because I kind of have a choice in just about everything I do.
Busier and happier. Those two things can come together.
Yeah, busier and happier. They can, as long as it's, the busy is what you want to do, and we don't always have a choice in that. But the key to that is recognize that there are more choices than we realize there are. We could choose our attitude and how we deal with things that maybe we don't want to be involved in to do. The way we have to. We have a choice in how we look at it. And then there are things that we have a choice in what to do, what not to do. It's like every moment counts, and how we spend it all counts.
100%. What's got you busy these days? Before we get too into it, just so folks know.
Well, social media is important to me. That takes a little bit of chunk of time. It's a daily thing. And simply what I try to do with social media is I try to present the world in a light that's more positive than most of us think it is. So I share, whatever shareable moments I experience, I share with whoever wants to look at it. Whether it's a photograph, a nice exchange with someone. I'm enjoying my TikTok account. I'm on a 4-day schedule doing videos of life, relationships, leadership. And all I need out of these things, I just need one comment for someone to say, "I'm glad I saw this today." That's it. My definition now of a bestseller, not having written a book yet, my definition of a bestseller is one person reading it and saying they got something out of it. That's a bestseller. That's a success.
Makes sense. So now I noticed that you've put a lot of you in visiting people at precincts. You've visited
Yeah.
a lot of the force over the years. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of the relationships that you
Yeah.
developed?
Well, that's actually pretty organic too, because when I was the chief of Brooklyn South, when I was the chief of the Transit Bureau, I probably spent 20 to 25% of my time actually indoors in the office. And we began talking about relationships, and that's what it's all about. And I just can't manage from a desk. I could probably manage from a desk, but you can't lead from a desk. So I just, interacting with people, it's not only something that comes natural to me, it's something that I gravitate toward. And I'll admit it, I need it. We all need it. It's why we're here. So, so back to the cops. I think, my social media account, it's not a police account, but organically when I run into these men and women, we have exchanges, we take photos, Sometimes in just a 10-15 minute chat, I can come up with something about them that I think is shareable. And I do that. And what the thing is, you know, most people, everyone likes to see good moments and good exchanges, and most people appreciate people who serve. So when I post a picture with a couple of cops and I write something good about them, just thank you for what they do. Thanks for a nice exchange. It's not just cops that look at it and feel good about seeing it. It's people who appreciate what cops do, see them being recognized. Recognized by who? Recognized by the person who happens to be on your screen. And that's me if you're looking at my post. And it's that like I said, a bestseller is one person reading it and saying, "I like the book." So it's I the goals are rather simple for me. It's just one impact, one person, one moment, one day at a time, and that's what I do. Kind of with cops. But the other thing is, I just like yesterday. Here's a good example. I'm in BJ's and I speak with a cop named Val, and he came through at the academy. He came through my orientation in 2015. So we're chatting, and frankly, I had a little time. I go to BJ's. Everybody goes in, comes out with $400 orders. I come out with like three or four things. Um, and I planned on chatting with him. I had some time, and I was going to just chat with him. And it was a woman who lives deep in the housing developments in Coney Island, pretty tough area. And she was there chatting with him in the process of telling him how much she appreciates cops and how difficult what they do is. So that was a half hour, and I only got to speak to Val a couple of minutes. And it's this woman cares. She's a good woman. I gave her my business card and said, whenever you see a cop in Coney Island, I said, please go over to them, show them the card, tell them we're friends, and tell them I love them. And so it's back to what you see with me on social media, the photos, the moments. It's spontaneous. It just kind of happens. It's just like yesterday. I came home yesterday, and I had big plans of doing a 5 mile walk on a boardwalk, and 5 miles became 3 miles because it's a nice day. So I wound up speaking with a couple of friends in front of the building, then someone on the boardwalk, then someone in the lobby, and then someone right in my hallway. Um, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's just it's kind of like why we're here in life.
So talking about the job itself, you have a lot of wisdom to share for the people involved in Sworn. What are some of looking at the long arc of history? You were at the department a long time. If you think about the relationships on the job, the impact of the job on the relationships off the job, could you talk a little bit about that? In the police world, or your experience of how and where relationships really mattered to your health, to the job itself.
Well, relationships matter to everything. It's like I just spoke at a career day in PS 60 in Woodhaven, Queens, and I love speaking with young children when I do these presentations because I have a PowerPoint that when you look at these slides, if you don't hear what I say after I show them, actually sounds like I'm bragging because there's a picture of me doing a press conference with mayors behind me. There's a picture of me, at a parade, chatting with a bunch of cops. There's a picture of me doing all these quote unquote notable things. So I show one slide after another. There's one shot of me playing my harmonica with the NYPD jazz band. They're all in their uniform, and and I'm in mine. And and then I say to these kids, and then I talk about what the position is, which I'm not comfortable speaking about the rank is, but I'll say what a 3-star chief is. There's only a small number of them in an agency of 35 to 40,000, and then I'll say, so how do you think this happened? How do you think I got to this point? And they raise their hands and they talk about doing your studies and doing your work and working hard, and I acknowledge that all of those things matter, and I say yes, absolutely, but what's really worked for me, and I think works for everyone, is relationships. And it's building relationships with people. And building a lot of relationships with people. And the way to do that is to try, unless someone's abusive to you, to try to find the good in, what's good about people rather than what's bad. Because we could turn around and, I don't want to do a test here, but we could probably think of just about anyone in our lives, um, except my girlfriend and my children. They may be listening. Anyone in our lives, and we could find something that we'd want to change about them. Um, and then we could find things about people that we don't like. But, with a little effort, we could find things we absolutely love about everybody we come into contact with. And for me in business, that's how it works. Because we could focus on something somebody said to us at a meeting last month that we didn't like and stay there with it and see them every day as that person who interrupted me at a meeting. And that's the rest of my professional relationship with that person. And there's never any collaborating. And if that person's presenting something in a meeting and I have an idea or suggestion, I'm never going to offer it because I'm so upset because in October of 2023, that person spoke over me at a meeting. They made me look foolish. And if I stay there, there's no relationship with that person. And now because I'm not collaborating with them, they'll never give me a helping hand. And it's just, hey, how you doing? And sit next to them in a meeting. So by finding what works in all relationships, um, unless it's at the expense of us, in other words, if we're being abused by somebody, I mean that personally and even professionally, by focusing on that, things just work pretty well. And I'm very proud that as chief of Brooklyn South, chief of transit, I would regularly get feedback from people in other bureaus, whether they be staff, whether they be the top person, saying, "Oh, the transit bureau, everything works with you guys. You're always so accommodating. You're always so easy to deal with. Your people are amazing." And that meant the world to me because I feel like, we were all just following that lead that we really all set, that we're all in this together. And it just it just has so many um dividends. It's like morale's better and people are battling less and they're forming relationships. I used to love to take people on my staff who would drive me, and we go and I take them into one of my chief colleagues' office. And then I watch them see somebody in that office. These are people who never met face to face. Rita, how are you? I talk to you all the time. I'm Angela. Oh yeah, Angela. Oh, you're one. And I watch this, and it would warm my heart because these are all relationships, and that's how things work well.
How about the question? A lot of cops hang out with other cops, off duty, and not all, but do you have any guidance for is that a healthy thing, an unhealthy thing, just a thing? You know,
Well, a lot of lawyers hang out with other lawyers.
sure, doctors, whatever.
A lot of carpenters hang out with other carpenters. And when I watch these construction guys on this beach, I live in Rockaway on the beach,
Yep.
and they were, a few year project. They were building these jetties, and these guys would get there at 6:30 in the morning before sunrise, and they're sitting there hanging around by their cranes and trucks, having their egg sandwiches and chatting. And I'm sure if they decided to do something after work, they did it together. Because construction workers were hanging out with construction workers. But I would say that balance is so important in life. And I began by talking about realizing that at 68 years, this is not a dress rehearsal. I mean, I stumbled into the National Art Gallery at DC last month, and I'm a person who always said I'm not interested in art. You know, Also a person who says that each of us is an artist, by the way, in our words, our deeds, our acts. But and frankly, I was doing a really long walk. I needed a break. I was into about 2 hours. It was raining off and on. I had an umbrella. I had things I was carrying. I thought I was in the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, and I used to look at these big steps. And in DC, anywhere you go is a 10-minute walk. And I said, it's an art museum, art gallery. Let me just go in anyway. And I spent the whole afternoon there. And the next day I went back there, and the next day, and for an hour before I left the day. And I'm going back to DC in June. And that's where I'm going to spend on the free time I have in that art gallery. Now I'm loving art. I'm looking for art. So be open to changes in our lives and our interests, and also be open to different people in our lives. And yeah, it's good to be around people who understand, cops hanging out with cops, lawyers with lawyers, but it's a good practice to keep other people in your life and to making sure that if your friends happen to be cops, if that's natural and organic, that's good. But if it's because you're not comfortable, discussing anything with anybody else, then that's a problem, and we want to avoid that. Think about that.
In your experience, what are relationships like on a job between, say people in their 20s, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? You got a workforce, right? That really varies in age and experience and background and where they're coming from and all of that. Over the years of your career, have you seen, different dynamics about, how the people of different age view things, work together, don't work together, have relationships, don't have relationships?
Well, the job is a cross section, of society, and just like if you go to a family gathering now, and in your own family, Adam, and if you have, four preteens, 12, 15, 17, 18, sitting in the living room at Thanksgiving dinner, you're going to see them all sitting like this next to each other on their phones, right? So if you look at 10 or 15 cops waiting to get assigned at a detail someplace and they're off to the side, you'll see that too. You'll see a bunch of them looking down at their phones. So they're, you know, the 25-year-old police officers we have are basically the people who were our youth a few years ago. So the relationships, it tends to, I mean, even like remember my days back in a precinct, like you tend to, you know, you it's the same. There's no difference. Like people who have the same interests hang out more with each other, but you're seeing each other all the time. So, like in the way I worked, you had relationships with everyone. There may be, of course, there were cops. I mean, I would literally run in front of them, and they'd run in front of me to protect each other. But I may not want to work with them for 8 hours. You know, and it's like that. And then there's others like I'm still friends with, like when I finish this podcast, I'll be on the phone with Mike Jacobellis, who I worked with in the training unit right out of the academy in '82. Steve Grossman, who I worked with in the 7-0. I'll be chatting with him before or after Mike, and at some point, probably Mike Collins this week, who was my partner for a few years. So there's these relationships you hang on to, and then there's the ones you don't. And it's one of the reasons I'm enjoying social media, by the way. I'm reconnecting with a lot of people. I jumped on the week I retired.
Got it. So how about relationships, in the neighborhoods where you served, with, whether it was, people involved in the criminal justice system, people in the community, people you worked with across agencies. How do you think about that on the job?
That happens also, and I mean, I just got a Facebook friend request from a woman, and she messaged me and said, "I'm not sure if you remember me. My name is Katie. I worked in the Brooklyn grand jury." And of course I remembered her. And now and it was so nice. I look at her profile. She's a trainer, and here we are about the same age, and she's in great shape, and she's probably also realizes that this is not a dress rehearsal because she's a physical trainer at, what is she, 65, 70? But as somebody from grand jury, and you have relationships with the district attorneys, and I saw, like, there was a post remembering a police officer who died in the line of duty, and one of the first comments was from a former DA, somebody who worked with that officer for years. People in the community. I mean, when I was speaking with that woman in BJ's who lives in Coney Island yesterday, I kind of felt like I was on the job, either as a cop or a chief, because this was a good woman, who cares about, when I say cops, I mean, she cares about people who serve. She cares about humanity. And, me giving that card, it was kind of like, I just wish I could be there when she shows up at some crime scene, or hopefully an accident where no one's hurt, and shows the card to some young cop in the 6-0 and says, he said to say that he loves you. you know. But this is a member of the community who stood there all that time speaking to this man in uniform, Val. So these things happen. I have friends. I have friends, from my time as chief of transit. I was just texting with someone who was one of the MTA executives. The life coaching. I got into life coaching, because of Carmen Bianco. He was the president of transit, and he retired. I called him 6 months after his retirement in 2017. Say, how you doing with the transition, Carmen? As I'm loving this coaching. I said, what's coaching? And he told me about the, IPEC, the school that he went through, and it was the easiest process in the world for me because him and a couple of colleagues that did it, they did all his research as to where to go. I just had to Google IPEC, and bingo, I was signed up that day. And it's kind of enhanced my life. So the relationships, they go beyond, if but then again, as you're listening to this man talking about these relationships, they go beyond, that's how I live. That's how I work. And I try to keep my circle big. I guess it's each of our choices how big our circle is. And it's certainly a biased opinion, but I would advise anybody that the bigger your circle of humanity, the better off you are. And that takes steps. Like the first step is, when we finish up, it's probably going to be close to 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. It's a decent day out there. It's a little windy. And I have a choice. I could grab that remote control. I have a nice apartment, good kid TV. I could watch shows. I could watch the news. I could see what's going on. I got a phone, but that could take me around the world just by sitting here. I live on the beach, so I could sit. I have a nice chair. I have a deck chair. It's not too cold out. I could sit out there and watch the ocean. I won't. I'm going right down those steps, and I'm going to be out probably till 9 p.m. tonight, till well after dark. And because I don't find relationships sitting here. I find them out there. And that's just how it works for me.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. I know when you were on the job that, was it about 5,000 people you taught the habits to, the seven?
Well, I did it for seven habits of highly effective people. It's a seminar that we did based on the book by Covey. It was a 2-day seminar, and I loved it. It was the 2 days of the month. We did it every month for 5 years. And it was the only 2 days in the month that I felt tired and felt like going to bed at 11 p.m. and not staying up later. It was exhausting in a good way. And we did, what did we do? 5 years, a little more than 5 years, one session every month, 2-day sessions, 25, 30 people in each. And then we did a few offshoots. We were invited to certain places to do it. And then I've done it a number of times since. I still work in it to a lot of my leadership training. But I loved it because imagine finding a book that you find helpful, whatever it is, a YouTube video, a quote. Imagine finding something that you find helpful in your life, and you'll look at it and then you put it down and you walk away. And, to what extent do you really retain what you got out of that? But when you're teaching something, when I'm speaking about the principles of the 7 habits of highly effective people, which are really life principles, I used to begin these sessions by saying, you're not going to hear anything in this room that you don't already know, because these are life, but you're gonna hear it put in ways that make them more memorable and therefore more practicable for you. Something you'll more likely to put into practice. So I got a lot out of it, because standing up there talking about it, I just did a TikTok video that I'll be putting out next week yesterday. And it's, it's about, it's a lot of what I've learned through teaching that. And it's about trying not to take things personally and trying to recognize that a lot of times when we're angry, what we're really feeling is rejection, which is a horrible feeling. And I also loved bringing cops into that room who would walk in thinking that, training, okay, they're going to teach me how to do this procedure better. They're going to tell me they want more of those. They're going to tell me they want better compliance with this. And then they find out, like you can almost see the light bulbs, the light bulbs going off when they realize that this training is for them to live better lives. That's it. That's what we're offering. 2 days of talking about how we can each live better lives. So I enjoyed it.
It's very relatable to Sworn because, in Sworn, we're doing sleep, nutrition, fitness, experience, and relationships being a key part of that, driving everything, right? So, but, the what you have to do is not rocket surgery, and it's stuff that that people learn. It's just the actually practically doing it when you've got multiple shifts and things going on in your life and challenges and just getting through them. I love your example about you could watch the TV or surf the internet, or you could go walk on the boardwalk, and what's going to happen in both scenarios, right?
In fact, Adam, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking, I'll probably take a segment of this podcast, that segment, and just put that out everywhere, because that's a message, and it's a message I'm mindful of, because there are people who they have reasons they can't get out.
Yes.
Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional, psychological. So when you see me like on a post referencing getting out, I'll always say, if you can, if you're able to. And sometimes I'll say, if you're not, this sunset is for you. Like I try to be mindful of those.
Oh, sure. No, or call your mother or whatever it might be.
Connect with people.
Yeah.
Connect with people. It's why we're here. We're not here to go it alone.
Yeah. So what else in relationships have you found to be important? Again, for the people on the job who might be implementing health habits. They might be in some sort of position of transition. They might just dealing with the health issue, as you mentioned before, or trying to prevent one from growing in the first place. There's a lot of what we're doing with that. So.
Well, when we talk about self-care and wellness, there's a lot to self-care. Many people have a relatively limited definition of what self-care is. If you ask one person, they may say, well, it means going for my checkups once a year. If you ask somebody else, they'll say, well, it means, going to the gym 3 times a week. But self-care is, I came up with this thing years ago that taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's selfless, because it better enables you to take care of others. Self-care has to be constant. I mean, like when I talk about not picking up that remote and going outside, that's self-care. Because what happens, there's hormones that are released when you exercise. And I'm not talking about doing a marathon. I'm talking about just doing steps. And these things make you feel better. And they just affect everything. They affect your exchanges with people. Regarding relationships, nurturing relationships, nothing just lasts. Plants don't grow without a little love and attention. And, some need to be watered and some need to be spoken to also. And so that is true with the people in our lives. And, like I just like the idea of that concept, it's that practice actually. So often we say, we got to get together. We got to get together. We got to get together. I just like taking those we got to get togethers into, I'll send you a few dates.
Right.
I'll send you a few dates. And I had that exchange with a friend this morning, and we've been talking about getting together for 2 years. And what I do now on my phone, I keep a list in one spot in my calendar, and it's titled Free Dates. And so I'll just go through and 4/28, 4/30, 5/2, and I look at my calendar. I sit here and then I have it in there. So this person today said, we never did that coffee out in Rockaway. And I I just copied and pasted and sent her available dates for me, the end of this month, May, and into June, and said, I'd love to pick one of these. And she thought that was funny. She says, wow, you come up with these dates quickly. I said, no, I have a system. Because the system helps me go from we got to get together to here's some dates. And we got a date. Yep. We got a date on May 13th. We're going to be having lunch or coffee or something. I don't drink coffee, but I'll have water. Something's out here in Rockaway. So relationships, we have to be nurtured. Our relationships have to be nurtured. Everything has to be nurtured. Things just don't last without being nurtured. And that's our wellness, our relationships with each other, and our craft, how well we do what we do. You know, we can never take our last success for granted. We always got to work at our next success.
You know, one of the things we're doing in Sworn, what you said about teaching, you retain the material more and have an even richer experience, you know, with it when you're teaching it than when you're learning it. Everybody in Sworn can be an accountability partner or battle buddy to somebody else. If and you can choose, maybe you want a family member, maybe you want a friend. You know, the way we've set it up, we've made that, you know, really easy to do. Could you talk a little bit about, you know, relationships on that side with mentors and peers and those who just generally look out for each other in this profession?
Well, everyone, just about everyone, can mentor in something. And I think too many people see mentoring, leading, teaching as something bigger than them. And when we see it as something bigger than us, then we never challenge ourselves or give ourselves the opportunity to mentor or to lead or to teach. So, I mean, you know, I could be a security officer with 8 months in my title, and someone else just got hired 2 weeks ago. And if I think it's not up to me to, you know, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a mentor, well, then I'll never share anything with that officer, you know, standing 20 feet away from me. But if I realize that I'm a mentor, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, then I'll, you know, I may offer some suggestions, some guidance, some tips, and, you know, you may find this, you may find that, you know. And when we do that, it can become habit forming. And when we teach and we mentor and we look and when we share experiences, everything we teach, mentor, and share is more memorable to us. You know, it's our retention, our highest retention levels are the things that we teach to others. You know, studies have shown that 95% of what we teach to others we retain. So I guess the main point I'll say about mentoring is for every one of us, whatever position we're in, whatever our title is, should recognize that the more we mentor and teach, the better, and we're better at it than we give ourselves credit for. And if we don't do it, we don't realize that.
Can you talk about some people who mentored you early in your career or throughout your career?
Yeah, I'll give you one. John DiCarlo. Mike Collins and I were rookie cops. And hey, John DiCarlo, he was a detective. He didn't have a title of a teacher, right? He was a detective in Flatbush in the 70th precinct. And he's now at the time, to get a photo of a subject, if somebody had been arrested, that was like a big deal. You had to do a request, and you got it a week later. You know, I mean, it was like a big deal. You didn't just go find a photo. You just go on the computer or your phone and find a photo. And he's showing us these photos. And I guess he must have seen something in us, because we only had about 10 months there. He must have seen that we were into what we were doing, which we were. Maybe he saw an arrest or two that we made. And this is a detective, you know, these guys, these are like the specialists, you know, so they didn't all stop and chat with you. And he's showing us these photos. He says, this guy carries a gun. This guy lives at 2-1 in Catalia. He's been arrested for robbery. And he's showing us these photos. So I got them in my hands. There's like a stack of them. It's like 6 or 7. And I'm looking. I'm looking. At the next one. He tells me about this guy. I said, oh, thank you. And I go to hand him back to him. And he says, hey, yours, keep them if you want. I'm like, wow. How do you get these photos? And that was like the spark from being a cop who gets a call on the radio, goes to it, and does the best we can with it, to being a cop that looks around the streets for people who maybe have been arrested before and are wanted, or people who maybe have been arrested for weapons before, and just watch them for a little while and see what they're doing. Um, and if you would have asked John DiCarlo what he does for a living that day, if somebody would have bumped into him, on the way home from work and said, "So what do you do?" He would have said, "I'm a detective in the NYPD." He never would have said, "I'm a mentor."
Yep.
But he's a mentor. And that made an amazing difference in our careers. It was a spark that, Mike and I, we did pretty well. I was pretty proud of our reputation in the streets, our reputations with the people we arrested, our reputations with the other cops, our reputations with our bosses. We got put into a plainclothes unit. We made our share of gun collars, gun arrests. We both continued some type of enforcement positions, even through the ranks that we kind of went up together. But that was it. John DiCarlo, Louis Miller, our training officer, was killed on March 7th in 1987. He was killed in the line of duty a few years after he trained us. And so there's the mentors that I can recall, like now. And then there's the ones that they teach us things and we don't even know what's happening, but we're picking things up.
Yep.
So, I spoke for a bit 5-10 minutes ago about how we're all mentors, and we learn how to mentor by mentoring. We learn how to lead by leading, which is teaching. It's also important to realize that we're picking things up all the time that we're not realizing. And we have to be open to that. Because back to how we began talking about finding the good in people, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So if we are so focused on what we don't like about someone, they may do something really outstanding that we're not going to learn from. We're not going to copy because we've already figured out that there's somebody that's, has nothing to offer to us, and everyone has something to offer.
Beautifully stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
So, again, sworn as very much health and wellness and thinking about, mentoring and giving people tools and resources and all of that. Can you think of, from a health and wellness standpoint over your career, where maybe you learned some things from some people, maybe positive, maybe not, that you corrected later? How do you approach the subject of health and wellness?
Well, depending on the age of who's listening to my words right now,
Good.
If you have a 6-year-old child, little girl, and you're looking at this little girl, not only do I ask you to think about what life will be like when she's 42, and will you be able to walk through Disney with her and her child? But think about her child. Will you be able to take her 6-year-old girl, 30 years from now, 35 years from now, to the park and pick them up and put them on the swings? Will you be able to walk around Disney or someplace, or Great Adventure, or, someplace around here? If we don't already have motivation for taking care of ourselves, I'm suggesting find it. Find it. Look at a colleague of yours who's struggling with health because of poor choices that they made, and think about, what are your choices today? Because wellness, it comes in so many forms. Listen, the reason we did this session today at 1 p.m. and not earlier, it's because from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., I was with my therapist, Jackie, who I've been seeing for 11 years. And this is the best version of Joe Fox that I've seen. It's the happiest version. It's the most well-balanced version. So the question is, so why do I still see a therapist every week at 11 a.m.? Same reason I take my blood pressure every morning after I wake a while, just to make sure it's in line. Same reason why I'm going to do steps today. Same reasons why I pay attention to what's on my screens. Same reasons why I swipe if I see something that's controversial or doesn't make me feel good. So wellness is everything. It's what we expose ourselves to. It's what we eat. It's how we, I love finding ways to take care of myself. I see a chiropractor 3 times a week. Marcella feels wonderful when we go in there. Wonderful. Alice, it feels good. I feel nothing after. I feel nothing before. I feel great before. I feel nothing after. But something tells me it's not bad for me. It's like chicken soup. But too much chicken soup's no good either, because then you can't play with your 6-year-old grandchild in the park, right? So I go because it's probably, and I say this, you know, almost in a humorous way. I believe in his craft. He's a good chiropractor. And it's probably good for me. And I'm doing it. And it only takes a few minutes. So anything that, I mean, almost every single thing we do, we should imagine if we could have another voice with us that says, that's not good for you. Imagine if we could just have that little voice on our shoulder that tells us whether something's good or bad. And you know what? To a great extent, we can be that voice. We can be that voice. I mean, just this conversation, this last couple of minutes has motivated me. When my light lunch is going to be some faje yogurt, fat-free, lots of blueberries, some nuts, and some honey on top, because we deserve to live. And honey's, if you're going to have sweets, honey's the way to go. I'll probably have a little less honey because I like to pour it on because of this conversation, because I'm going to hear that little voice saying, too much honey is not good for you. And if I could carry that little voice around, I'd be even happier than what you see right now.
Yeah. Everything in moderation. Thank you again for, you know, an engaging talk, and, you know, for sharing some of your story and some guidance that people can lean into. Thank you.
I hope. Thank you for the confidence and the opportunity, Adam.
Absolutely.